This is my union contract over there.
Coming from California, I understand.
Yeah, Bruce, a lot of you probably know he was the youngest of 5 siblings. And he was, my dad was the next up, and they were very close. And Dad he always loved having a trailer or an RV. And we had a trailer before, and then, but in '72 we got an RV. So if anyone's been here for many years, you might have seen it parked in the front for several days, which, of course, I don't know, we'd have to block it to make sure it didn't roll down the street. But so every summer we'd travel across the country, and we'd always come here, and we'd always just be completely welcomed. And I was always intrigued by the forest and the house. And when I came in here today, I was like, where's the wall that was painted red? But I mean, that's probably been gone for decades. And it's a real trip to be back in this house after all that time. But I remember going back, they lived in a townhouse of sorts. And there's actually a place in Torrance, California. Yes, Torrance. And it looks so much like that neighborhood. I actually drive through it when I can, just to kind of remember how neat it was to visit even that place. And then they had a greenhouse before that, and I don't know where that was, but Virginia would set me up with a typewriter so I could just type away, doing absolutely nothing. But at night out the window, there'd be fireflies, and I'd never seen fireflies before. And I haven't seen any since. But it's funny, there's a picture of Richard Nixon on the table in there, and I remember Dad and Bruce were having a Michelob, and they were arguing about Nixon versus McGovern. Of course, my dad's the Nixon side, and Bruce McGovern. I'll just never forget that. Here's a funny thing. I don't know if any of you knew that he bought like an early Honda Civic, one of the first ones, and he hated it. But it was orange. It was a neat car. His photography, yeah, it's crazy because when he would come to the West Coast for like a Christmas or Thanksgiving or some kind of family gathering, he'd bring just slides, like first the trays, then later the carousels, and just show all these pictures of all the places he'd go, Europe and China. And some of my cousins would be like, hopefully none of my cousins are here. There's 8 of us, and I think I'm the only one that came, so you didn't like the slides? But I was always intrigued by the slides, and he is an amazing photographer. And all these pictures that he took of Europe kind of got me into this old architecture, and which kind of got me into model trains, because it seems like model trains, when you get the little buildings, they all look like they're from Germany, like the 1800s or something. So, but he also got me interested in photography, and I got my cousin's his whole darkroom set up. So I started doing that. I never got good at it, but it was fun. Breathed in a lot of chemicals, which might explain a few things over the years. But just recently, I mean, I guess over the last year, because my father passed away in June of 2024, and Bruce was a huge help and support for me during that time. Kind of reunited us in a big way. And so we were talking about all kinds of stuff. And, photography is one of them. And I was telling him I wanted a camera so I could do some astrophotography, but I also was interested in a telescope. And he said, well, don't buy both. But I did. And I was just telling someone I was in Albuquerque last year, and I picked up a film camera, and I got some infrared film, which today is not quite as good as the old stuff, but I shot some interesting pictures, I thought. And when I got the film back, I was like, oh, you suck. But I colorized them, and then I emailed them to them, but I didn't know they'd already passed. So they were several days too late. So when you do open this computer, you'll see the pictures. Just tell me they're good. Let's see. Well, every time we would come here, Virginia would greet us with a huge smile and such kind eyes. And she had a comforting voice that, as a kid, reminded me of 2 characters kind of put together from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood: the cat and then some other lady. But it always reminded me, so it was always really nice to hear that, and she would always greet us and just have us sit down, and we'd have great meals here. And she's just such a sweet lady with such an amazing resume, but especially the voluntary resume. I mean, there's a bunch of pictures that I've never seen before, and I mean, achievements I never knew about. And what an amazing person I wish that she had actually corrected and edited my notes. It would be great. And back to Bruce, there's actually things I didn't know about him either. I mean, I just found out last year about the airplane. And then the poetry, that's very cool. My wife is doing poetry now and she loves it. Oh yeah, that's what I was just talking about too, is there used to be a hardware store around here, not the one up the street. And just to keep me busy, we bought a model car, and it happened to be the same model that my dad's first car was. And Virginia set me up a spot and helped me put it together and paint it and stuff. And I don't know what happened to the car, but I came back here, wanted to do a few things and reminisce, and I went looking for the hardware store, couldn't find it, but that's okay. I went hiking where he took us hiking one time. I think it's the same place. There's rocks and trees and water, so. And I got to see a couple of cardinals, which we don't have back east. I just saw a blue jay out here, which I haven't seen. We used to have them all over the place now. I don't know where they went, but it's probably due to climate change. And I had a lot of talks with him about that and sea level rising. And in fact, I'm on social media constantly, and I've gotten in quite a few arguments about global warming and climate change. And when I'm in a jam, I just look up one of his papers or something, and I just copy it and paste it and say, there you go. Yeah, and they probably read like 3 lines ago. Huh? Let's see what else we got. The Christmas newsletters, a typewriter. Well, that's the thing is, because of that typewriter, when we got home, I took out our old typewriter, and I was so intrigued by airplanes and aerospace that I decided that's what I want to do when I grow up. So one of the things I did was I typed all these letters to all these defense companies and manufacturers, and said, could you please send me as much information and pictures of everything? And back then, I mean, they were like, yes, sure. They sent me tons and tons and tons of information, which today I don't think they would do. But so that really got me interested, but I ended up changing my mind because I kind of found out later, it's like, you can't just sit in an office drawing airplanes and then go, how about this one? They don't do it that way. So I switched to architecture, and in my architecture classes, in the first couple years of college, we had to design something. I based a house on this one, and I still have it somewhere. And I kind of got into the look of this. I'm not sure what they call it, but he took me and my dad to a store called Scan, which I think just went out of business about 6, 7, maybe 10 years ago. And that really got me into some Scandinavian furniture, but I find myself going to IKEA by our house probably about 4 times a year, just kind of sitting back in one of their rooms. Just kind of thinking of Scan and what an interesting time that was that we went. And no, I didn't become an architect either. I switched to art. Let's see, I'm going to skip that. After my dad had passed, actually my dad was sick after 29 years of battling prostate cancer, and he was successful, but then I came back and just hit like that. And so Bruce was talking to me like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, do hospice, what can we do? And Dad went quickly, but Bruce was right there, and just like, I'm so grateful that he was such a big help, so much advice, so much support. And we talked more about a lot of different things, but it was nice to have such a great person helping me out. Oh God. When he had Robbie, the collie, we were walking the collie along one day, and out of nowhere, an orange cat ran up with its claws out and latched onto the collie's side, and Robbie gave a yelp, and Bruce stepped right up and kicked the cat like a football, and it went sailing. And I'm like, Bruce? That was a good one. It's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon. Like, whoa! But, I got to see him last year, and it was right after, I guess he fell. That's when I met you, Brian. And I had hoped to go to the pub and have a drink with him, but we couldn't do that, but we did get to see him after 2 tries at the rehab center. And it was just really good to see him and see his face and to come out here and drive by the house, because I Google Drive sometimes. I Google Drive Victoria, BC, and Vancouver, and here, because it's kind of silly, I know, but like, I would Google Drive, I'm like, oh wow, his house was brown, now it's gray. Or it's like, hey, where'd the Buick go? You know, and they changed the picture. Oh, now he's got a black Toyota. So he had a huge influence just on me with photography and airplanes, and really appreciate what a great person he was and what a wonderful person Virginia was. And I miss him. I have all my aunts and uncles. No, but whatever. My cousins aren't here. I'm kind of mad at them for not coming either, but you know what? I would have come either way, so it doesn't matter. They all didn't come to my dad's memorial either, so I know who I am, and I know who my aunt and uncle's friends are, and I appreciate everyone for being here. It's really, really awesome seeing everybody meeting people. Thank you so much, and thank you for letting me stand up here and get goofy.
And the arc of our friendship with Bruce and Virginia started 30 years ago when we bought the house. And among the first things that we did was...
How many years ago?
30.
Wow, it's been that long?
It's been that long, yeah. And we started out by redoing a few things at the house, and we always found like we were missing a particular tool. So we would come over, and Bruce had a vast assortment of tools. So he would lend us that and then give us advice on what to do with it as well. So that was really, I think, a big start. And we kept up over the years. He and Virginia came to our wedding. So we bought the house before we were married. So in '99 we got married, and they came to the wedding. And Bruce ended up just on his own deciding to take a lot of pictures. So he was kind of the backup photographer to my brother, who was taking the pictures and all. So he put together a CD for us with music and all that kind of things that he was just so good at in terms of doing those sorts of activities. And just we ended up really building just such a nice friendship with both of them. I remember Virginia, because she was at the White House then, orchestrated so we could have one of those tours. So that was really a fun time with them there. And, just over the years, Virginia would always bring us flowers on our wedding anniversary. Every year. These kinds, actually.
Yes, hydrangeas.
Hydrangeas and all. So, and then we would often, come over for wine and cheese, and then they come over there. And then after Virginia ended up in the assisted living and then passed away, we had Bruce over for dinner once a week for all that time. And even as he became more enfeebled, we would bring the dinner across the street. And so we feel like it was really sort of that trajectory over time, right up to the very end, because as you remember, there was a snowstorm. So we were among the last family we were able to visit. So with Kathy and over Casey, just here with Bruce in the other room, and the sort of the peacefulness of what was going on at that time. And even though he couldn't speak by then, we could tell that he heard our voices and talked to him and all. So that was really I think a fitting close to what had been this long arc of friendship over that 30-year period.
So I prepared some remarks so that I wouldn't ramble. I'm a professor, there's always that risk. So I'd like to start my remarks first to remember and celebrate Virginia. She was such an independent spirit, as many of you know. She first came to Washington, D.C. on her own to have an adventure and see what life would be like as a working woman in D.C. And during that time, she was a student at George Washington University, where I've now taught for 25 years. She then trekked out on her own to California, where she met Bruce. She loved to travel and have adventures, which she took her all around the world, and I understand she has a photo album or a scrapbook on every single one of those trips, so if you're really interested, see it. She often did that on her own with her girlfriends because Bruce wasn't really interested in doing all that travel. So I really admired her thrill-seeking, her adventurous spirit, and for some of you that might not seem like such a big deal, but for somebody of her generation, this was a big deal for a woman to just strike out and I don't know what I'm going to encounter, but I'm going to go do this, you know? So I found her really inspiring in that way. But what I really want to focus on is her community spirit and the many contributions that she made to our community here in Mohican Hills. And a lot of our neighbors are here. Some of you may recall that for 5 years and 20 issues, she edited the Mohican Hills newsletter. And I'd like to share just a sampling of what she wrote because I think it illustrates both her quirky spirit and her sense of community. So on the latter, she wrote a lot about our community's history with stories like the stone castles of Mohican Hills, and a bit of Mohican history ends as third-generation resident moves on. She once did a news search for all of the stories that mentioned our neighborhood in the Washington Post from 1944 until 1988, and she wrote about what she discovered. Her last issue featured Mohican Hills mailman David Lane faces retirement. Our dear mailman, yeah. She wrote about newcomers, she wrote about retirements, she wrote obituaries. On the quirky side, she wrote about Mohican Hills critter stories.
Yes.
They were wonderful. They were. These included a hawk breaking through a window, an unidentified screech from a bush that was never determined, pesky rabbits, tunneling moles, mighty mouse, and black mamba or garter snake. She wrote of woodchuck, deer, and of course, Dan Sutherland's friendly butterfly. We often joked that Bruce was Mr. Doomsday. He always pointed out the impending end of the world. It turns out he also wrote sometimes for the Mohican Hills newsletter. In 2006, he wrote, "Where on Earth is Mohican Hills?" In it, he asked the question, is elevation important to us in Mohican Hills? And he answered, if Greenland were to melt, global sea level rise would be about 23 feet. But that's no problem for us, given that we lie between 165 and 310, to be precise, above today's sea level. Here was one instance where he actually was a little hopeful. You all know Bruce and Virginia loved their dogs, and collies in particular. That also meant that Bruce had a particular fondness for Lassie. Over the years, I think we exchanged one Lassie cartoon several times back and forth. In the first panel, a drowning man calls out to Lassie, "Lassie, get help!" In the next panel, Lassie is sprawled on a couch under psychiatric care. Bruce loved that one. He loved puns. For years, I would text him the dumbest ones I could find, and especially any one that concerned science. Now, when I came across these, I now feel kind of a pang, of course. It's like, oh, Bruce would love this, and I can't share it with him. But I also remember Bruce's sense of humor, his jump rope smile, and his laughter. Just recently, we saw this New Yorker cartoon, and I have it here, but I'll describe it. We saw this New Yorker cartoon that seemed to be written just for Bruce. Lassie runs home, and he's in the kitchen delivering his dire message to Lassie's mother. He says, "It's Timmy. His future is going to be a dystopian nightmare." It's so Bruce. In her last issue of the Mohican Hills newsletter, Virginia lamented that Mohican Hills was no longer the community it once was, where neighbors banded together to fight for new services and facilities like streetlights, water mains, and paved roads. This is something neighbors had to lobby for at the beginning of our neighborhood. She complimented the lovely people that populate our neighborhood, noting that we were kind, yet busy. Bruce and Virginia's example is one we could all try harder to follow. I think they would be pleased with the turnout today. I'd like to propose a toast, not just to celebrate their individual lives, but also to dear neighbors and the community they fostered over so many years.
My name is Lois Cheney, and my husband is here somewhere. My shoe is off my. It's off my shoe. Okay.
They could be shoeless.
Okay. As I look around, I don't know how Bruce and Virginia had time for all of you. They were so much a part of our life. Virginia was the salad person. Bruce was the bubbly Christmas, New Year's. We think they were always with us. We're not really sure we believe you. But we heard about the neighbors and the dinners. We heard about poetry. Bruce was really excited about that in later years. Bruce was my call-a-friend. No matter what it was, he was my first person. Whether it was an illness, whether it was Bob Weaver, where is Bob Weaver here? For an estimate, whether it was, it didn't matter. We came to the theater with grandchildren. So we know how much you all are a part of his life. Bob and he were the working life, and Virginia and I were kind of the lives of working people together. But this is really incredible to have friends of different generations and that would come together. We live on an island most of the time, and there's a close-knit group. But I don't think this exists in the world. I really don't, unless you're on an island where you have mutual activities and part of it is staying above water. But I think this is just wonderful. So hats off to all of you for coming and sharing and being part of Bruce and Virginia's lives. I still don't believe it.
I'm Katie Berner. I'm the CEO at the Glen Echo Park Partnership for Arts and Culture, and wanted to speak about another part of Bruce's life, a major part of Bruce's life, which was Glen Echo Park. So Bruce was a longtime fixture at Glen Echo Park. Of course, walking with the collies and just meeting and greeting everyone at the park, visiting all the studios and galleries and checking in with the theater, Adventure Theater, and the puppetry folks. We have a few people here from Glen Echo Park. I know Brian is here from the Silver Studio. Amanda back there from Adventure Theater. We've got Kevin Patty, Ranger up here. Anybody else? Ron and Rosa. Rosa is the restorer of the carousel, so she's actually here from North Carolina. I was really close with Bruce.
I took dance at Jeff Davis Group
Great.
for 50 years.
Wow.
Till you threw us out. The ballet girls, we didn't come back after COVID.
We threw you out, I'm sorry. Anyway, Bruce was an incredible fixture at the park and came up to the office, of course, and visited us and spoke to me quite often about all of his opinions on every single aspect of Glen Echo Park. We spoke frequently, and I think he had a real love for all the different individuals involved with the programs and paid close attention to everything that was going on at the park. I think he had a personal attachment to the individuals there making the art and participating in the art, and the Rangers, and Kevin's one of them, Sam Swirsky before him, Michael Bobbitt, who was the director of Adventure Theater, I know Blair at Silverworks, Jordan Bruns, the artist, the Pipers, and Alan Stevens at Puppet Co. So just individually, he was really, really attached to people. And he didn't like me very much. And I think it was because I was the regime coming in to change things from the Park Service running things. It took him a while, but he over and over said in the last few years he really congratulated the partnership and me on what we had done. So, but he was very honest with his feelings, and you all know that. And he had incredible talent as a photographer. So he took the best picture we have of the carousel, and I wish I had it on display here, but it probably is at glenecopark.org/carousel. I imagine we're using it there. We have it on display at the park. But he just provided support, you know, in any way we needed it with photography. I know he did that with Adventure Theater as well, and so absolutely adored the carousel and documented a lot of what was going on with the restoration and so forth too. He was incredibly generous. I mean, he felt the park was an extension of his family and everyone in it, and he contributed to individual studios and organizations as well as to the park as a whole. Really wanted to be invested in the future of the park. So we really saw him as, you know, our beloved uncle walking around the park, and if you were working the gallery, you would definitely, he would come by and visit you. So, you know, he was a great advisor to me, also just on the structure and how things worked, and he would give me kind of strategic advice as well. So his mind was amazing. Anyway, we really will miss him. I don't know if any other park people, maybe this is the park section where if there's anything you want to say. You don't have to, if I covered it. But thank you guys. Okay, thank you.
Yes. I don't have much to say. I'll just take 2 or 3 minutes, but I remember, I shared my love of collie dogs with Bruce. I love them, and I couldn't have one when I wanted one, but I did have one once. And so he wrote, he knew I loved them, so he wrote a paper, a long thing on his and Virginia's life with these collie dogs. He had 5 of them, different times, you know, one at a time. And he gave me that paper to read, and loving them myself, I remember reading that, and it was so sensitively written, and I was really moved by his writing of it, and his love for those dogs he had. And even the last one, he told me, he said, oh, it died. And he said, he said, it's gonna be hard to live without a collie, but he said, we can't do that to the poor dog, because it might outlive us. And he said, I can't do that, so I thought that was good of him. And the other thing was, in the poetry meetings that we had them at Corian's house, Corian's here, and at Bob Heider's house. They had the big house with a big table that we could get around. And we each read a poem and discussed it. We got very close friends by it, and Bruce especially liked it a lot. And he told me countless times about how it changed his life even. So anyway, one day we were at Bob's house, and sometimes Bob would ask a few of us for lunch, one or two of us. So he asked Bruce and me to stay for lunch, so we did. And we had a nice lunch, we were talking, and after we were finished, Bruce, I really got to know more about Bruce. He started to talk about his studies and his interests, and he surely was a Renaissance man. And we just listened, we were kind of just immersed with it, and we loved it, being immersed. And then we left, finally we got home. And that night, Bob, the host, called me. And I'll never forget, he said, you know, I could listen to that Bruce talk about his ideas for hours. And so that's that. I wanted to share those 2 things.
Thank you.
we haven't met, I don't believe, I'm Margie Sullivan, I lived next door until, a couple months ago, October. Bruce and Virginia, Bill and I have been neighbors for 54 years. We watched this house get built. This was a tech house, which was a spin-off from MIT, where I had worked before I moved to Washington. And it was a prefab. It was one of the earliest prefab. And on the corner here, I remember the two carpenters, one inside and one outside, putting the sides together, and they said, "Are they lined up?" He said, "Yep," and they nailed it in. We had many adventures with the dogs. The dogs were quite noisy. Woof, woof. They were herding dogs. And so they would herd everybody that came around the corner. And they would run up and down and around. But when I quite abruptly for the neighborhood decided to move out and moved out in 2.5 weeks, I came over and told Bruce that I was making the decision as he was declining. And when the house was sold, I came back and told him the house was sold. And Andrea, I met the wonderful Kathy. I had medical issues after I moved, and Kathy came in and helped me. Her team is wonderful. And the lasting memory of Bruce, when I told him that we were moving, he said, "Please tell whoever builds on the house to take care of the trees. I am very nervous about these trees." And I said, "Bruce, for 54 years you have been nervous about these trees." So far we've had no problem. So it's been a long community. I was at Glen Echo for years and years. I noticed my peonies aren't doing so well on the corner. I don't have to go investigate it. And what happened?
A tree fell.
Oh, is that the tree?
Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay, I saw that. Yes, my peonies disappeared. But Bruce and Virginia were wonderful neighbors, and we move on, I guess. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Let's show up. Martha, we came into we didn't know the lot was for sale when we bought our house. We would have bought the lot. And it was a beautiful garden. The man that owned our house had the 2 lots, and he had a beautiful wildflower garden, and Margaret and I came in and we dug up daylilies and irises. That was my introduction to Margaret.
Yes.
Because Bruce and Virginia started building, I think 6 months after we moved in.
Yes, that's
Ms. Casey.
it's a vivid memory.
Yeah.
A good one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's so wonderful, and it's so nice to be here in Bruce's home. And I'm so glad he was able to spend his final, months here at home and pass away at home. I felt like that was wonderful for him. And it's so great to see all of you and many of our long-term neighbors here who supported Bruce over the years, and especially the Dickersons across the street who had him over every week. I'm sorry, Bricker House. Sorry. Bricker House. Yes. You had him over every week for many, many years.
6 years.
Yes, which was so meaningful and so nice, that you took the time to do that. It meant a lot to him. And so I grew up right up the street. And I remember Virginia and Bob. I remember Virginia's lovely voice. There was something about her that was so kind and soothing and loving, I guess would be the word. And she did so much volunteer work in the neighborhood. Yeah, she was amazing. So, and they had a long, loving relationship for 50 years, which was so exciting. And Bruce was just wonderful with his volunteer work, and his support that he gave to people, and his humility, his humility. He didn't ask to be put in the limelight or have his name out there. He didn't want that. So, and before he died, he said, I have wonderful neighbors. So I just want to let you guys know that, because it was so beautiful. So, and we talked about the afterlife, and he said that, there was no scientific evidence that there was an afterlife. So I said, well, I said for my personal experience, what I've witnessed, I do think there is a spirit world. So I hope he's found the evidence he was seeking.
Open it up, if anyone else, it doesn't have to be anything formal, if you just have a story or just a quick remembrance.
I'd like to say one thing. We had a different relationship with the people, but we used to have cocktails together about once a month. And I was so impressed with Bruce's involvement in doing things for the community. Like, the first thing I realized was he was in the library and he was working on computers as a volunteer to help other people learn how to use the library computers. And the next thing I noticed, that he was also down at Glen Echo, and he was doing things to let people know about the things that Glen Echo stood for and the history of Glen Echo. And I just was so impressed with this man locating things that he could do that would be good for the community. Anyway, I'm sorry that he's gone, and I'm particularly sorry that his wife is gone. I was very, very friendly and very fond of both of them, but particularly his wife. When a new family moved in, she was the first person to get there and welcome them and give them a newsletter and make a recording about who they were and stuff. And they were very special people to be living in this community. Anyway, and their dog, of course. The big thing was that the last dog they had would not fetch. And I thought, that's very unusual. People really want their dog to fetch. But it didn't matter. They said they would not leave this house, even to go to an assisted living place, like, well, it doesn't matter, but until this dog passed away. And then at that point, they already decided they weren't going to leave anyway. Anyway, they were great neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
By Glen Echo, and on the trek, one of the stops would be my wife's studio, Silverworks, and he would come in, and that would almost every weekend on one of those days end in an hour-long conversation. He and I sitting on the couch just chatting about shared interests in music and photography, in computers, in all kinds of different things. It was amazing how many interests we shared. And after he was gone, just 3 weeks ago, the Artemis mission, I was so looking forward to sitting on the couch and talking to him about that. And we'll have that conversation later.
To the Irish Inn, and I met Enrique, the bartender. And we somehow got to talking about, what I was doing here, who I was, and he said that Bruce and Virginia were some of his favorite customers. And he's been there for 18 years. And he knew about Virginia, but he didn't know about Bruce. I had to tell him. And so we shared a tear and had a toast. And he said that during COVID, he would deliver food up here, and they would chat. And he just really loved them as customers coming in. So I told him I would tell everybody about that. He said, that Enrique. So tip him well.
Artemis, when that mission happened, Jennifer and I sat around and thought Bruce would have used this as a way to go with his favorite rant about why it was ridiculous to try to send people to the moon. Right. Yeah. So this was a constant theme of his discussions about the space program.
Yeah.
So we thought he would have loved to have the opportunity to rant and rave about this expedition.
What was his perspective? Why did he think it was crazy?
Because you didn't need to go to the moon to do the kind of research and all, and it's waste of money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trying to support humans being there.
Don't even get him started on Mars.
I'll just say one thing briefly. Maybe one of his more recent friends. I live in Glen Echo, was on the Glen Echo Town Council, but I met Bruce maybe 20 years ago, was it? Emily and I moved to Glen Echo in 2004, actually right before Maggie died, because we met Maggie and then we met him we remember supporting him right after Maggie died. We had dogs, we walked our dogs together, we would meet on the field at Glen Echo frequently, and he started coming to our house for Thanksgiving dinners occasionally, or other meals.
We didn't know there were
One of the-
multiples.
Yes, he got around. And Virginia and Bruce came to my 50th birthday party, I think, back in, 12 years ago or so. But I teach at the Waldorf School up the street. I've been there for 21 years, and I invited Bruce to come to my class when I was teaching an astronomy block to 7th graders, and he regaled them with the why never go to Mars and among other things. But my 7th graders were very sweet, and he was just in his element, talking to students who had his rapt attention. He had their rapt attention, and he loved to share those stories, and he did that with our families and with the students and with us on our walks through Glen Echo. He loved Glen Echo. His friend Mike, who's moved to Savannah, Georgia, I believe, South Carolina, Charleston, right? And the three of us would often walk through town together with our dogs, and we have many happy memories, and he's missed. So thank you all for sharing him with us.
And you'll make available a link to this. My wife, who with me has walked past their house every day for almost 50 years now, since we moved into the neighborhood, has a baby shower across the street. So as I said,
Yes,
to the
yeah.
email, it was a nice symmetry, the memorialization of one Mohican neighbor moving on and a new one being born into the neighborhood.
I'm gonna
Although
put it on YouTube, and I'll send a link out.
Right.
We'll send it through the listserv and also on the Evite, anybody who has access to that. And yeah, because I spoke with, a lot of Bruce's other friends, people from high school, and, people that are still all over the world, so. Yes. So, I know that Kathy's been recognized, but Casey, are you hiding back there? There she is. I also I wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to meet and recognize Kathy and Casey, who are two of the most extraordinary human beings and caregivers that you'll ever encounter. And they just poured their hearts and souls into making, that last year of Bruce's life, really gave everything they could to him. He had a lot of challenges during that year. And I do think that it was absolutely the right decision for him to come home, and it was only because of these two incredible ladies that was able to happen. And and then when you know, none of the rest of us, except dear neighbors and Kathy and her aunt moved in here with suitcases during that snowstorm.
Snowstorm.
Yeah.
And I was, I'm kind of worried because I said, oh my God, what's gonna happen if Bruce passes away and nobody can get here,
Right.
no one and all that. But I think he heard, my prayer, so he passed away at 4:15. But the night before 10:30, they even communicated with Jan, Kathy, don't worry, 10:30 they're going to do the snow. They're gonna clean up, so it's just good timing. Yeah, good timing. And then at 4 the next day, early morning, he passed away. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but he died peacefully. Very, and every day, they come every day. They come and visit Bruce. Oh, Kathy, can we come over just a minute? So we have to clean him up and all that time. And then he spent a lot of remaining days with them every day. And some other people come and visit. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's very happy. I think he's at peace. You can see in his face. He's just, smiling or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for coming. You all have my contact information. If there's anything you want to, convey or share with the group, I could send it back out. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at what we've set out in the bedroom there. Again, a lot of wonderful things, a lot of long time. I mean, I haven't found anybody who knew that Virginia worked for Bobby Kennedy. Worked as a volunteer. I actually never met him because she was here in Washington waiting for the boss to come back, and he never did. But that was just, among the things, that she never called attention to these things in her life, and so again, thank you, everybody. There's no rush to go anywhere. 4 o'clock was arbitrary, so take as long as if you want to just continue to talk to people and share and eat. You're welcome to stay. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.